Okay, so I'm out and about and I'm going to take the FPV drone for a flight, and I thought I would put a quick video together and just share some of my thoughts. Now, this isn't a review on this product. My review will be coming in a few weeks, but I just thought I'd share some tips and info and just some experience having flown multiple DJI products before, as well as some thoughts on this having put some packs through it. Now, talking about the V2 goggles first of all, if you're a goggles owner for the V1s, look, there's very little difference here. It's the same product basically. Yes, there's a slight improvement in resolution when using it with the FPV drone and an improvement in refresh rate. It isn't something I can really say makes a massive difference. Yes, I can see it with the drone, but it's got a better camera as well. I haven't really done enough flights with the V2s on the FPV system to really judge the difference, so I'm not really going to comment on that. Over the last day or so, though, we have started to come to the conclusion that we're not going to be getting that video output for traditional FPV on the version 2s. Now, JB has put a post and a bit of a video out on this, and he's made a very kind offer to people who purchase based on his info through a certain retailer, that he'd support them in taking them back if they didn't want them. But look, DJI have never officially confirmed these goggles are going to support video out on standalone FPV. The way we've now realised these goggles appear to work is that they basically have two different sets of firmware. There's a firmware for using the V2 goggles with the traditional FPV, which is the same as the V1s, and there's an entirely new firmware for using it with the FPV drone. And the smartphone output is only compatible with that firmware for the FPV drone. It doesn't work with the traditional FPV mode. Now, does that mean it's never going to work? I don't know. Here and now, DJI don't appear to be saying much on this, and many of the hints of compatibility seem to have gone. They certainly satisfy what it says on the box, that it does work with the smartphone, with the drone. There's very little to argue that it should work on both sides. We all hope that the V2s were going to give that FPV view out on the smartphone on both sides of things, but it doesn't look like it's going to be on the FPV side of it itself now. Might change in the future, but for those who bought the V2s based on the fact they wanted this smartphone output, sorry guys, it looks like it's been a waste of time. Yeah, I can't really say much more than that, really. Now, other than that, for me, the V2s are very similar to the V1s. They have all of the problems of the V1s with the poor fitment and light leak. And yeah, it's the same set of goggles. If you've not used the DJI FPV goggles before, you're going to buy a set of V2s anyway. I'm not going to give you a review on it now. It's a box set of goggles. They're very good. They're not perfect. Now, something that is new for me is the battery that you get with the V2s. Obviously, on the V1s, I was using a traditional LiPo. Now, I really quite like this. I didn't really think it would be an impact, but it is nice just to have a dedicated battery for it. I can't really give you an idea on total longevity because I've only done a few flights, but through 40 minutes of flight yesterday, it went down just one LED. So I'm guessing we're going to get about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I did like the fact it's USB-C, we just plug it into charge and it works. Yeah, it's a battery bank. It's no different to a USB one really, but it is quite good and it's a nice addition to the kit, and it means you just don't have to mess around with a LiPo. Now, moving on to the DJI drone and the battery itself before I actually get flying, and we'll look at some footage in a minute as well. I just want to talk a little bit about the DJI smart batteries because there is some tips I can give you based on other DJI drones from the past. Now, I put a video out yesterday talking about if you can use a traditional LiPo with the FPV drone, and you can't. You can only use the DJI Smart one. Whilst you can power the drone, it won't take off, it won't arm, it won't let you. Now, there is some things you should do if you're new to buying this with these batteries, and that is just take it easy for the first 10 flights. Don't hammer these packs down to 10 or 5% as soon as you get them. My personal advice has always been for the DJI batteries, for the first 10 flights, don't take them below 50 or 40%. Then once you get to sort of 5, 6, 7 flights, start stretching them down to say 50, 40, 30, and then 8 to 10 flights, you're absolutely fine stretching the legs on them and taking them down. Personally, I don't like flying any DJI battery below 15%. Whilst you can go lower, you are entering dodgy territory, especially on a drone like this, which is going to be using as much power as it can out of the packs. Now, the nice thing with the DJI smart batteries is they they do look after themselves. They will self-charge, and charging is a breeze. You just plug them in and they work. The downside is the damn price. They're ridiculous money, 160 quid in the UK. Insane money for what you're getting, but they've got us over a barrel with it. They really have, and there's nothing we can do. Now, I've seen some people commenting about modifying them and trying to put different cells in. People have tried that on the Phantoms. It's never really worked. It doesn't really get you anywhere. My advice is don't waste the money hacking one up. Wait and see if some other company comes out with some third-party options. But even then, I've never been anyone who recommends using third-party batteries with DJI. It's just not worth the risk. If you're buying a DJI drone, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be paying through the nose for batteries, and that is just the reality of the system. Now, moving over to the drone itself and the remote controller. Now, this remote I really like. I have to say, I really like this more than any other remote DJI have ever made. The only other remote I'd say I like as much as this, or close to, is the Syndense for the Inspire 2, simply because of the functionality. From a how comfortable this remote is point of view, it is really nice, and I just wish DJI would allow this to work with the standalone FPV system. Just to confirm, it does not. It only works with the FPV drone. And if you're someone who has bought this kit and thinks in the future, I might progress into more FPV, the sad fact is, whilst the goggles are fully compatible with the other ear units, the damn remote controller isn't, and you're still going to have to buy another remote. DJI really need to make this compatible with the ear units. It would be a great progression path for people if they wanted to move from this into traditional FPV and use it with multiple aircraft. There is no good reason why this isn't compatible. Now, it is very nice, this remote. It's got a nice weight to it. It's nice in the hands, and all the controls and buttons are just easy to get to. I do still have mine in sprung throttle, even though I'm flying in acro mode, because I can't really be bothered to actually take that off. It's not a big issue for me. I can fly acro with a sprung throttle. You get used to it. It's not a problem. And if you start getting yourself into trouble, you've got that pause button that gets you out of jail, and I really like that too. Although the aircraft does do some really quite mad flips when you hit that button compared to when you switch out of acro mode. And that's something I might show you guys actually a bit more in the video later on, that if you switch from acro to sort of GPS, the aircraft sort of levels itself up and it's fine. Whereas if you switch from if you hit the pause button whilst in acro mode, the aircraft seems to do this big flip and then level itself up. It's a much more harsh movement, and I'm not quite understanding why it does that. I'll film it and try and show you guys this as well. But really, on the remote, love it. Really, the only downside to this damn thing is the fact it isn't compatible with the ear units. Now, finally, to talk about the drone itself. Now, this isn't a review. I have really mixed feelings on this product, and I am going to say this in my main review overall. I can't decide what this product is for and who it's for. It isn't a Mavic. It isn't a camera drone. It lacks all of the features we've come to expect on a camera drone. Whilst it has object avoidance sensors, it doesn't really do proper object avoidance. It just slows down. It has the visual positioning system on the bottom, which is really pointless on this model. It could have just used traditional GPS. It still would have been much more than we've had on any other drone, like FPV style drone, because Betaflight's GPS functionality is crap. Well, it's useless. I don't mean crap, that's the wrong term. Sorry devs, I apologise for that. It's not up to the standard of this. iNav's is better, but it's certainly not up to DJI standards. Whilst it's nice having it, to me, it's a bit pointless on this product. The camera is good. The drone flies very well. It's not great in acro mode, and it's not terrible. It's a pig. It's heavy. You can feel it. The part I struggle with on this is this. This drone is probably the simplest way to learn how to fly acro. The problem is, you're going to get bored of that really quick. And if you get competent quickly, you're going to outgrow this product in maybe even a month. And what I mean by that is this. If you've never flown a drone before, you might get used to flying GPS mode in a couple of weeks. And you'll go, that's good, that's fine. It's got all the safety features. It's got return to home. It's got that automatic recovery if you hit the button. You know, that's all great stuff. if you then thought, right, I want to start learning acro mode, and you started flying in the basic acro mode, which doesn't allow it to do flips and rolls, and you got used to that, and then you started flying in full acro mode and you got used to that, you're very quickly going to get very competent, or I don't mean very competent, but you're going to get competent, and you're going to outgrow the things you can use this for. Because whilst you can fly this through the trees, whilst you can do flips and rolls with it, one tap in the wrong place and you're going to rip an arm off the side of it, and you're going to be down a few £100 to say the least. And that isn't a problem you will generally get with traditional FPV, because the drones are much more designed to be smashed up. Worst case, you might break an ESC, damage a motor. It's always something you can repair. You might break an arm, but you can just get another frame part. The problem with this is you're going to quickly end up at a situation that you think, I've got used to it now, but I'm afraid to fly it the way I want to now continue to learn to fly, because I'll damage it. And that is my problem with this product. I think it's really good. I think for someone who wants to learn to fly from scratch, it's probably the simplest way to do it. But I think you might really outgrow it very, very quickly. Now, I'll talk about that a lot more in my review later, but that's just my thoughts, having spent some time with it. Anyway, let's get it in here. Let's get flying, and I'm going to talk about some of the stuff as I'm flying as well with it, the menus on the goggles and what I think about that side of things too. So let's get it in the air and let's get going. Just something I wanted to show you guys. Look at the state of my landing pad. Now, this is one Freewell Gear sent me a couple of years ago for free. And it's been in the back of the car all winter in its bag, and I've taken it out today and it's completely falling apart. Now, obviously we're still in winter here. It's a lovely day. But yeah, this is the first time I've really been able to get it out and use it. And yeah, it's completely gone. Sorry, I've not got autofocus on, so this might be out. But look, it's completely delaminating. Yeah, yeah, that's a goner. I'm going to have to replace that one. Now, the first thing we need to do is format the SD cards. We could do with a shortcut for this, actually. I need to have a look if we can do that in the menu and add it to a button, because that would be a really nice feature. Well, you wouldn't want to do it accidentally. It's a bit of a faff to go through the menu system to format the SD cards. I'm just doing both goggles and the aircraft side. Now, at the moment, I'm in traditional FPV mode. Just going to have a look around. I have got people with me, don't worry. So I do have a spotter. I am not on my own. I'm going to drop it straight in. I'm going to start recording, actually, first of all. Now, I've put it straight in sport mode, just to have a play about. Now, this coordinated turns firmware that DJI have added, I don't mean firmware, I mean flight mode. It's quite cool. It's quite interesting the way it works. So it coordinates the turns for you. So you're not worrying about having to learn both stick commands, you know, using yaw as well as roll. But yeah, it's quite cool. It's quite cool if you're someone who knows how to fly. I can imagine it being a bit of a downside for people who've never flown before, because you're learning bad habits. You're not learning to fly properly. It makes flying rather easy. Let's get the altitude down a bit. We don't need to be that high. You know, it does make flying very, very easy if you have flown before. Okay, range was kicking up there. Just heading out. Now I'm just cruising along the water's edge here at the moment. Sport mode, yeah, look, it's very docile. It's certainly not difficult to fly. Oh, I've managed to drop signal already, which I think is interesting. Let's get some more altitude. It's interesting. I'm not that far out yet. I have started to drop signal. I'm a little surprised at that. Oh, signal's back. Now, the nice thing on the display on the goggles is that you see the home point. You have this option to have a overlay for the home point, a big H on the display. Augmented reality is the term I should probably use, to show you where the home point actually is. So you can actually do it that way and not actually just have an arrow or something like that. And it's a big H on the screen. It's quite cool. Something interesting is, so what I've done is come out, right, because I lost signal, it had actually come out of sport mode and it had jumped back in to normal mode because I lost signal for a second. That's interesting behavior, not something I've seen before. So it seemed to have dumped back in because I was getting the object avoidance come up. Now the reason it's doing that is probably the sun. I've got the sun, I was sort of heading towards the sun that way for a second, so it was probably picking that up. Now I'm going to drop the altitude again. I'm not in acro, I'm only in sport. I'm going to take the camera up a bit more, just so we can see. That's very good. A nice feature is having that ability on an FPV drone to adjust the camera. You know, you can adjust it, which isn't just something on FPV we're used to doing. You know, once you've got your camera set to the angle you want, and usually that's it, you're stuck at that point. Now I'm keeping the altitude up a little bit because I did lose signal just now when I was dropping it down. It makes a really good FPV cruiser, this drone does. It really, really does. For the guys who used to build TBS Discoveries and things like that, it really, you know, we'd have dreamed of having something like this back then. We never had anything like this at all in those days. Let's bring him back around. And then, you know, the nice thing is, and also on these switches on this other side, right, I can switch it so you can see the camera's looking down. And then you can switch it back to middle, or I can even switch it so it looks up a bit higher as well. But it's a nice little feature, that, isn't it? So you can go, look at me. Now, obviously, I can't see a thing at the moment, but there's nothing here, so I don't have to worry. But this coordinated turn thing, yeah, you know, I think the coordinated turn mode is bad for new users, but it's quite nice for existing users. It's just lazy more than anything. You know, it's a lazy way of flying. Now that was an interesting situation. I actually ran out of battery. I wasn't keeping an eye on the battery percentage as I was flying. So I was over there showing you guys, and I ended up getting down to 10% without noticing, and it did a self-return to home. What's interesting is it didn't land very close to the home point that I took off from at all. Nowhere near as close as I would have expected some of the other DJI drones to. Now, it does meant to have precision landing. So this time when I take off, I'm going to do it the way precision landing generally works. And the way you do that to get the most accurate precision landing is you take off and then hover a couple of feet, 8-10 foot, up to one sort of 8-10 foot above the takeoff point, and just stay there for a couple of seconds, because it allows the vision and positioning system on the bottom of the drone, the cameras, to actually look at the ground, and it takes little images of it so it knows where to come back to. And it also helps the GPS get a better lock on position as well. So we're going to take off again, and we're going to give that a bit of a better shot this time and just see how well it behaves. So what I'm going to do is just do this one-handed. We're back in standard GPS mode. Battery percentage is 100%, unless that battery wasn't charged. I need to keep an eye on that this time. So I'm going to do this one-handed, just like any normal DJI drone. You can do it with the stick, and then I'm just going to take off. And then what I'm going to do is just stay there a second and just hover about that level above the takeoff point, just so it knows it's set. Now when you take off, you'll notice the lights will flash, the green lights will flash fast, and that is to say that it has recorded the home point. So that is worth something checking when you are taking off. But we'll do another return to home in a minute and just check it does land as it should do. And then this time I'm going to keep an eye on my battery a bit more, because I didn't actually do that last time. So let's take it out. Now, again, I am not flying in acro mode right now. I am only flying in normal sport mode. Now, it is interesting, as I'm flying, as you guys can hear, I'm what am I, 7 meters off the ground, flying along the edge of the beach, and you can hear the object avoidance picking up. Now, I am flying towards the sun, I'll be honest, I can see me turning off this object sensing when I am flying at low level, because even in sport mode, it's very noticeable. Some people walking over there, so I'm just going to come away from that and come back around. It's very noticeable that when you are sort of following the edges, that the object sensing is being detected. Yeah. Put a bit more altitude in. I do not want to smash this into the decks. And as you, yeah, that mode is, you can certainly hear it. Now the nice thing is, because this is a DJI drone, I'm not having to worry about things too much, because I know I've got GPS return to home. Oh, some birds. We don't want to get near one of them. We do have return to home, so I'm not going to get into too much trouble if I do have a problem. Battery is down to 74% after 2 minutes. So I recorded at takeoff this time, so I'm going to keep an eye on what sort of flight time I'm getting in sport mode. Battery's at 70%. RC signal is 1 bar below full, as is HD. We've got 20 sats on the GPS. Goggles battery is at 50%. Aircraft battery is at 69%, and we're 3 minutes into the flight. Something I'm just going to do now while I'm looking at this is the field of view settings. I've currently got it in the widest mode, and as you can see, we've got the props on the side. So I'm just going to go into the menu while the aircraft is up there, go down to the camera, and I'm just going to adjust some settings just to see how it looks with these settings out. So we've got the normal camera settings there. We're not going to mess with them. We're going to go down to the advanced camera settings. We're going to record with both, which we're doing. Auto recorder takeoff. We've got the image stabilization on. We're going to turn on the distortion correction for both sides, I think. Let me just come out a second. If I just record with in the normal mode there, so you can see we're recording in the standard mode, and you can see that you've got the props in view either side. And then if I stop that, I'm going to then go into the goggles, up to camera, into the advanced camera settings. We're going to go then for the distortion correction for both, and I just come straight back out of that and then record again, so you guys can see that. So you should now be able to see that the prop, it's punched in beyond the props. You can't actually see it now. So that's one way to get it. Obviously, it's using up some real estate when it does that. It is using some image real estate up. However, you can now see the difference between the one and the other. So what do you think?
It's cool.
Cool. What can you see?
It looks like a huge cinema screen, but it is like tiny goggles.
Right.
It doesn't then. I see the water. I can see on the sides the wings, kind of.
So what do you think? Does it look like you're flying?
Yeah.
You like that a lot, do you?
Yeah. Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Does it look like you're flying?
Yeah, because I'm on a drone. I can see the water.
Right. Don't move, because you'll fall over. Is it like racing on Star Wars?
No.
What's it like?
I've been there. And
Does it feel like you're flying?
it feels like I'm on an airplane having chocolate.
Having chocolate? Why would you be having chocolate when you're flying?
Just,
Low battery. Okay, so we're going to set the return to home. We're going to let that kick in now, and I'm going to actually see, 1 second, and there it goes. And I'm going to see this time how close it actually gets, because last time it wasn't anywhere near. So I'm going to keep the remote in my hand and use my phone to record it. So, well, I've gone to do my third flight and I can't, and that is because my battery is flat and I don't know why. Now, these 3 batteries were charged on the DJI charge hub that come with the Fly More kit last night. I know they were charging, or at least one of them was charging, because I saw the lights flashing when I put it on. I also know that all the connectors were right because I put them in myself, and I actually had to pull them all out this morning when taking this battery off to come out today. So that is something I need to investigate a bit more. Now, I'm trying to think, is that the reason my first flight time was cut short, because that battery wasn't as charged as I thought it was? That is very, very strange indeed, and something I need to have a look at. Now, to be honest, I've been a bit distracted because I've been making the video, so it isn't something I've paid as much attention to as I usually would. So I am going to go away and have a play with that and try to understand what's going on. Now, really, this isn't a review, but it's just some observations really of this setup. Other than the battery, that's a bit strange. Some other things I'll mention is this: the visual positioning system and the precision landing system, in my opinion, is not working. It is landing within a metre or 2 of the home point, but if this had precision landing like the spec says it has, it would be landing within a foot. It certainly would be landing on my landing map, because that's quite a large one. It's definitely not working. In the 2 flights that I did, it didn't work at all. I made sure I took off and hovered it above the home point as well, and it's miles off. So that's something I also need to go and take a look at. Perhaps it's not enabled in firmware. Is this a feature that DJI haven't actually enabled? It's there in the spec, but it wasn't enabled in the Mavic 2 Pro either when it launched. So that's something I need to go and have a look at. Some thoughts on this product. It flies well. It's not the best flying and it's not the worst flying drone in the world. The object sensing in sport mode is quite annoying. It is constantly going off, and I need to go and check that out on the goggles if I can turn that display off, because it's very frustrating. Even though that the object sensing isn't officially on, you still get the indication from it and the beeping to say it's picking stuff up, and that's simply because of the bank angle and low level flying especially. The drone flies very well. It's got that nice mode which allows it to do the coordinated turns. It's a very bad idea for new pilots to use that mode, because you're not learning to fly properly. For someone who's experienced flying like me, it's like cruise control on a car. It's quite nice. It's, you know, it's a lazy flight mode, and especially if you're going to go in sport mode and fly it around as an FPV, yeah, it's fair enough. I haven't got it into acro today because I was playing with these other 2 modes, and my plan on the 3rd battery was to get it into acro, and I've not been able to now, so that's a bit of a downer. I'll have to talk about that in another video. I still don't know what to make about this product, if I'm honest. Now, this isn't a review, as I said at the start. Having spent some time with it, I really just don't know what segment it fits into, because it's not a Mavic. It doesn't have the flight time of a Mavic. It's not a racing drone. It's not a freestyle drone. It's not even an FPV cruiser, because the battery life isn't good enough for that. It really is a strange one, because it's a good product that doesn't seem to have a hole to put it into, and it doesn't mean you should be able to put every product into a bin or a hole to say it's that product or it's that product, but it doesn't seem to do any of them well, if you get my drift. It flies very good, but it's not a camera drone. It's not a racing drone, and it's not a freestyle drone, and it's not an FPV cruiser. So I think it's really hard. It's really hard to put a decision. And I'm not saying it's a bad product, and I'm going to talk about this a lot more in my proper review when I do that in the next couple of weeks. But I just thought I'd share that again after spending some time with it. Anyway, that's enough for today's video. I hope you found the info useful, guys. If you have, please do hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the little bell as well. Please check out some of the other content I did as well around the batteries and stuff, and I'll be putting some tutorials out on this in the next couple of weeks as well too. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'll speak to you guys soon. One last thing I do want to add to this is this drone is a complete pain in the ass to carry. I need to find a bag for this thing. Why didn't DJI give us one in the Fly More kit? They usually do. It doesn't really go back into its box very well, and you don't want to toss it in a backpack because it'll just get damaged. Yeah, how annoying.